Good evening. First, I just want to thank you for coming out and just offering your time, your ears, and prayerfully your heart, and one day your voice to help us as we continue to fight this fight for our sisters that we left behind. We don't negate the fact that we have a lot of brothers out there, but there's so many organizations and so many people that support them. When you hear the word prison, your mind most often goes to a violent male, never to the female, never to the mother, the aunt, the sister, the cousin, or the daughter. And so that is why we do what we do, to bring more awareness to the fact that we are there, we were there, and they're still there. I thank Amy for the Can Do Foundation. If it had not been for the Can Do Foundation, my profile wouldn't have been out there. And then my sisters with the council and everybody just coming together and believing that I deserved a second chance. And my bio discussed the fact that I was in a very abusive relationship. And the prosecuting attorney was aware of it. The hospital records were there. The police reports were there. But when it was time for me to use it during my trial, you know, you have a public defendant and he does what he does, and it was not presented. So the jury never heard the duress or the coercion. That was never brought out. And I went to trial because I believed as a citizen I had a right to go to trial. I believed that justice was going to be served. I believed that my voice was going to be heard, and that even if they would have found me guilty of knowing, I never ever said I didn't know that he dealt in drugs. Like my sister said, I was rather privileged in life. So it wasn't that I was someone that needed someone to increase my financial status. I was okay. However, through the domestic violence, I lost a piece of who I was. I can't begin to explain how I lost my ability to think for myself and live on my own. But there was a day that I did. And when I started to fight back, I felt that the domestic violence continued through the court system, failing to allow me to present what happened to me. And then I went to prison, and I was looked at as a dollar sign, a sense of security. A life sentence meant you're not going anywhere. Go sit down, be quiet, because as long as you're in prison, I am going to have a job. So then I was abused by the system again. And so one day I met a young lady, and she put me in touch with Amy. And Amy, for about 3 years, just pestered me about filing my paperwork for clemency. Well, after, about 16 years of denials, 16 years of filing motions and getting the same response, denied, 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 after getting word that my father died and I couldn't go home, my mother died, I couldn't go home, my brother died, I couldn't go home. What was the point of fighting to go home? I didn't give up faith. I believed that one day, somehow, something was going to happen. But it was at a point in my life where I just felt like that was not the time that something positive was going to change. Thank God, she never gave up. She kept saying, file, file, file. And then when President Obama initiated the Clemency Project in 2014, I filed. And an organization that had been fighting on my behalf, the Clearinghouse for the Defense of Battered Women, they stepped up their game looking for an attorney to take my case, to help me with my filing. And Amy was contacted by Casey Tolan, who investigated my story, who wrote it in a way that I could have never told it, who found evidence in my paperwork that I didn't even know was there. And when he published the story, it went viral. Some of you might have read it. Some of you might have been the ones that sent it to the president. But people around the world responded and were outraged to find that a person was sentenced to life in prison for a drugless drug case for a first-time nonviolent case. Now, if we were to examine my situation, the only person or the only violence that should have been recognized in my case was against me, but it was never brought, it was never presented. And so because of the people and the support that I received, last year today, I was sitting in the prison on a bunk with a life sentence. Last year, today. On December 18th, I went out on a medical trip. And before I left, I gave myself one of those, man, it'd be nice if you come back today and tell you you're going home. And I came back to the prison that day, and they did tell me that I was going home. I want to say that there's a happy ending to my story. It's bittersweet. I am ecstatic to be home. I said to my sisters before I left, somebody's going to give me a granddaughter when I get out. I already had two, and my youngest one was born a couple of months ago, so I was there for the birth of my last child. But if you remember, there was a young lady, I think she was the second person that spoke, McQuell West. When I arrived at the prison in 1994, I didn't know how to do prison. My mother taught me how to be a lady. She taught me how to set the table, how to polish the silver, how to make the hospital corners on the bed. She never taught me how to do time. She never taught me how to submit and surrender to a guard that's yelling and screaming at me because they had some type of altercation with their wife before they came to work. She didn't teach me that. I didn't know how to do that. But there was Michelle West who came and introduced herself and showed me how to make the bed per policy and how to do this, that, and the other thing. That was in 1994 when I arrived at the prison. February 2nd, when I was blessed with my freedom, and I walked out the door. The last set of eyes that I looked into were Michelle West. I met her there, and I left her there. And so when I go and I speak wherever I go, I always mention her, because how do we live in a society that says that we justify by locking people up for the rest of their lives because someone said something? When you have people killing people every day, when you have pedophiles going out there taking the innocence of our children, and they're outside walking around, protected in a sense. But here these women are incarcerated. We wonder why our children are going astray and they're acting wild and crazy. It's because they were raised by the grandparents who were already tired from raising their own children. So they had nothing else to give to their grandchildren. So we have a society out there that's unruly, unmanageable, and we're wondering, where are we headed? We need to sit down and think about our policies, our laws. Think about why women have come into the prisons at an alarming rate. Do you not miss us? Do you not miss our faces? Do you not miss? There's a void there. And I'm hoping that after tonight, you make a decision to or not to. But remember, we have a generation that needs to be protected, and where are they? They're following in our footsteps, because a lot of our children, whether you realize it or not, want to go to prison because they want to be where mommy is. So they do the things that they do because they miss mommy. And if I be bad in school, and I'm telling you this because that's what my son told me, Mommy, if I be bad enough, can I come live with you? And that's not the image that we want to give our children. And so I ask that you remember each and every one of these people, these women, these daughters that spoke about their fathers and their mothers that are in there. Because I did time with most of these women too. So it's bittersweet. I'm happy to be free. I'm so happy because I have this opportunity. But a part of me is still back there because I left a family there that I did 21 years with. Thank you.